We're gonna talk about the Great Gatsby. Yeah, what I like about Tom from the get, when I don't know if you remember when he first met Jay, when he first met Gatsby, he was with Nikki at they were like at a bar or like at a restaurant. Do you remember that scene?
You're talking about when they're in like the speakeasy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when they're at the speakeasy, initially, Tom isn't one of those people that pays homage to Jay. Like, and you can
Right.
tell that like off the rip. Like,
Hey, Mr. Gatsby, this is Mr. Buchanan. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance.
like he sees him, but he doesn't like drool over him. He never really talks highly of him from
And
the
you know
beginning.
why, right?
Why?
It's because Jay represents like new money. So he's someone that wasn't born rich.
Right, and he's old money because
Yeah.
he inherited a lot of his money.
Yeah, so I think you can like when you're in that environment, you can tell who's got like deep pockets, right? Because you know their name has been in existence for a long time, and so I think that's how he's able to kind of like distinguish Gatsby and kind of like sense that bullshit that other people seem to kind of like almost like fall for, right?
Daisy, can't you see who this guy is?
Yeah, they just miss it, I think. Where like I also think Tom is very skeptical, and for many reasons, because he seems pragmatic in the way he sees things. So like for instance, he cheats on Daisy. And obviously like in the 1920s, that realm, it was very common, especially if you were a wealthy man and you had a lot of money. It wasn't uncommon for men to cheat in the 20s. It was almost expected.
I see.
It's a different, obviously like a different culture back then. But I thought it was really interesting. I thought a part of it was envy.
Of course not.
Especially when he starts to find out like, how does Daisy know him? But then
Yeah, I know your wife.
That's so.
Yes.
initially it's as if he pays him no mind. Like at the party, he doesn't care because he goes and sleeps with another woman. Like she knows about it, and she knows about his infidelities in the past, and he does it without hiding it, which illustrates like how much security he feels in that relationship with Daisy until Jay gets into the picture is when he finally starts to feel like, oh, hold on.
And you see the double standard there, right? Like he's able to do it, but here she is between two men and he makes her feel bad. He makes her feel bad.
Oh, I suppose the latest thing is to sit back and let Mr. Nobody from nowhere make love to your wife.
I always come home to you at least, even when I cheat.
Now, once in a while, I go off on a spree. I always come back.
Whereas like she's trying to leave him.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and as I was saying earlier, like in that culture, it was very common for the man to just be the provider and then be able to do whatever he wants as long as he's providing. And the woman, typically in the 20s, the workforce for women was very different than it is now, right? So like they had to actually depend on these men to provide. So even in a situation where Daisy's being cheated on, it's like, what choice does she really have? Especially when he has money. Like she's not living in poverty. She's living a very nice life. Like he bought her those beads. Remember when they got
He gave her a string of pearls worth $350,000.
married? Like their wedding was like extravagant.
And if you think about it, like she has a child, so for her to find another man to even accept her with another child doesn't seem as likely. So she, not that she doesn't have a choice, but it's not easy for her to just pick up and leave.
Yeah, I mean, as opposed to once Jay gets into the picture, like
Right.
now it's just a great choice.
Right. And she actually loves him.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But it just goes to show like how loyal she is still to Tom.
And like back to the scene where Tom begins to confront Jay, you finally see a part of Jay that you haven't seen throughout the entire movie because the whole movie, what I liked about Jay as a character is he's very calm, very like a typical depiction of cool, calm, and collective. He's just very well composed. He doesn't get frustrated easily. And throughout the entire movie, he seems to be very patient and he has this aura of being in control of his world and his scenario. Where finally, when Daisy gets into the picture and Tom begins to confront him, you start to see him slowly becoming unhinged, especially in the scene when Tom's starting to confront him about his like shady business dealings.
Mr. Gatsby, exactly who are you, anyhow? You see, I have made a small investigation into your affairs.
Yeah, I actually love the role that Daisy plays and how important she is to Jay because of her and how much he loves her, like he feels inclined to act a certain way, to impress her, to maintain his cool, to be diplomatic. He wants to do it for her almost, right? Because like remember he always hints that everything he does is for her. And the minute that he like loses control, he apologizes to her.
Daisy,
Talk to me, darling. I just lost my temper, that's all.
Almost like in shame. So it makes me think about how certain people are able to have that control over others where they want to be a better person because of that person, right? And I think people like that are important.
Yeah, it's a good point. But it's funny how she's the reason why he was so driven and so motivated to become successful. But then ultimately she becomes the reason why he loses everything, his life. You know what I mean? He loses everything because of that dream that he's pursuing. Whereas if he left it alone, he could have continued his life as he was and just left Daisy alone. And essentially what I thought was the theme of the movie is a guy that's chasing his past to the point where he ruined his present and lost his future because of it.
I saw it as he always had that drive. Even as a child, he always had that drive. I think he's very attracted to risk. Hence why he is in the stock business, why he's in business to begin with, why he wants to pursue someone even though he knows that he may not end up with her. Going back to this whole theme about how he's so hopeful, right? I think that's just something that he always has had.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. He did always have that. But I think Daisy amplified it. I think it amplified it to a point where I don't think he would have got as far if Daisy wasn't a driving force. And because like when he meets Daisy, he says that he knew what he wanted when he met her and he had a vision of the life that he wanted, but it had to include her. And that included him being successful because she came from a well-off family. He had nothing. So it's one of those Aladdin stories where just like Aladdin felt like he had to be this prominent, wealthy, rich Prince Ali to get Jasmine, because otherwise she wouldn't be with the street rat, who he really was. Like she wouldn't be with that. So I like those classic stories of those relationships between lower caste and upper caste, and especially like not just upper caste, but you're pretty close to royalty. Like if you think of like Princess Jasmine and Daisy, not royalty, but up there. She's like in a first class family. Like she's in a really upper class. So I think his assumption, especially during the 20s, was it's a good assumption to have, because if you're thinking realistically, even now, people typically date within their caste. You know, you see it with artists, with athletes, because you don't like, and it's fucked up to say, but you can look at it as if you're downgrading when you're dating someone that's in a lower caste system versus when you're with someone that has that same level of success that you have.
That's exactly what happened with the princess. I think she's the princess of Japan. She because she fell in love and wanted to marry like a common person, not royalty, she lost her title as a princess and moved to New York. I don't know if you heard about that. Yeah, I thought that was like weird.
So it's funny, they do that. I want to say it's India. India has a very interesting caste system. When you're in India, when you come from the upper caste system, you can only, or I think, I'm sorry, it might be North Korea. I think it's North Korea. When you marry, regardless of class, you can only move down in caste. You can't move up. So if you're first class and you marry someone, let's say that's low class, you become low class status. Whereas the low class person marries someone that's high class, she doesn't become upper class. The upperclassman comes down to low caste. So you could only move down and not up. And that's how North Korea is able to keep people in the low caste, in the lower caste system. They can't move up that ladder. It's impossible to move up. And it's interesting how they keep people in check that way, as opposed to America, right? Any rich American can go to another country, bring a person back, they can become a citizen, and all of a sudden they went from like poverty, low caste to like, now you're a citizen. Now you have opportunity. Now you have like, you can come up from that. Yeah. You can't do that in North Korea.
Yeah, it's actually sad because that's how you stay divided, right? Like, who wants to risk it all? I mean, it happens though, right?
But you're right. It's a risk that I think most people wouldn't want to take.
Yeah. Because you probably get banned from certain things. You lose a lot of probably privileges you once had.